wanted to say a few words today about players and their agenda, so that we understand where a player may be coming from as far as their behaviour is concerned. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight for you today, as far as being involved with a person who likes to play the situation with us is concerned, is to say that very often, more often than not, they like to have control of the situation and the dynamics. And this is because they like to set things up very often so that it's convenient for them. And very often so that we are not in the place of power in the situation. And so quite often they like to have the power and control, and therefore they will be on the lookout for any instances where we want to take back any of that power and control for ourselves in a relationship. And so, for instance, if we were to mention a need that we have and we state that need, a player may seek to undermine our position of control by stating our need, by detracting or distracting us from the need at all. So they may say, no, I can't do that. I can't give you that. No, we can't do that. We need to do this. So there will be some sort of distraction that sends the message to us that over time, after this happens a few times, we start to subliminally get the message that if we ask anything of them, and especially if we have a need that we want to be met, more than likely that's not going to happen. And so we become conditioned, if you will, to only fulfilling the needs of the player when and how they need to have that done. And this puts all of the power and control in the hands of the player. And quite often, this behaviour will show up really early on, because a lot of these people have been used to having things on their terms in their relationships. And they're not going to let that dynamic go anytime soon, particularly if it hands the control and the power over to someone else, when they could, if they carry on in the same old behaviour, keep hold of all that power and control for themselves. And so they see no benefit in handing over that power and control when they've experienced others in the past allowing them to have complete control, dominance, and hold all the power, so that they get to determine what happens, when it happens, and we become conditioned to not questioning that at all and not asking for any of our needs to be met, and therefore the player has their needs met. And very often we feel as though we can't even ask at the end of the day for any of our needs to be met, or for any control or equality in the relationship at all, because we've tried, and time again we have been shown that that is just not going to happen. And sometimes another trick that will happen is that they will promise that something will happen, and yes, you can have that, but at the last minute they will pull out. It may be in terms of a date. that has been arranged, and they find suddenly at the last minute that apparently they can't make it anymore. And this may have been an arrangement that you may have set up. And again, it's the same sort of thing. It's sort of pulling the rug out from beneath us at the last minute, so that we are trained to not want any of the power, and therefore all of the power is maintained in the player's hands continually. And in that process, at the end of the day, the partner often gives up trying to have any control or any say in any of the dynamics at all. So this is quite a useful tip to look out for early on, as far as how much control and power the other person will allow you to have. Because in a healthy relationship, both partners have some of the control, some of the power equally at different times, and they're happy to hand that over, because they know that that's part of fun part of being in a good relationship, is sometimes we have some of the power and control, and sometimes the other person does too, and they need to have that. And we all need to have a sense of autonomy in our relationships. But with players, it's often very one-sided, particularly with narcissistic players. It's a one-sided setup that's set up from the beginning. And so that's quite a good clue to look out for early on. And it can often show itself up in making arrangements and can we have our say as far as what happens, where we go, where we meet, what we want to do. Are we able to have our say, and can the other person respect our desire to want to have some element of control over the proceedings? Are we able to speak our truth? Are we able to have our needs met appropriately? Does the other person respect us in terms of needing that ability to be in our hands to gain the needs met at the appropriate time? Or are they undercut consistently right from the beginning? Or is there a semblance of our needs being met, but at the last moment they are whisked out from underneath us, and the player's needs are put to the forefront? In other words, the message is only the player gets their needs met and not you. So I thought that was quite a good tip to highlight in order to keep an eye out for some of these red flags early on, and as we go along the dating process. And it's often a good idea to stand back and just take a look at what is actually going on and what is being said, so that we can maintain our end of the deal, as it were. So, as always, take care and stay safe and very happy. Bye bye.